cold billionaire husband drew the line, but watching her walk away destroyed him. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, it is free, and it is the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories like this. Your support truly means the world to us. Where are you watching from right now? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let us go back to our main character. The chandelier lights inside the ballroom glow warm and gold, reflecting off polished marble floors and crystal glasses. Soft music floats through the air as powerful people laugh easily, the kind of laughter that comes from comfort and privilege. At the center of it all stands Evelyn, perfectly composed, dressed in a sleek evening gown that fits her like it was designed for this exact moment. Beside her is her husband, cold, impeccably dressed, untouchable, a billionaire whose name alone can quiet a room. To everyone watching, they look like the perfect power couple, elegant, wealthy, untouchable. But Evelyn knows better. As cameras flash and a board member steps closer for a photo, Evelyn instinctively reaches for her husband's arm. It is a small movement, almost unconscious, a reflex any wife would make. Before her fingers can touch fabric, he leans in, his voice low and sharp, meant only for her. "Do not forget the rule," he says without looking at her. "Never touch me in public." Evelyn freezes. Her hand drops back to her side, slowly, as if it weighs more than it should. No one notices. No one ever does. The cameras keep flashing. The smiles remain perfectly in place. She nods once. "Yes," she answers quietly. This rule is not new. It was written clearly, just like everything else in their marriage. No public affection, no unnecessary closeness, no mistakes that could confuse outsiders or, worse, themselves. Their marriage is not built on love. It is built on structure, on control, on an agreement signed in ink instead of vows spoken from the heart. To him, it is business. To her, it is survival. Evelyn shifts her weight, standing half a step behind him now, exactly where she knows she belongs. Her posture is flawless, but inside, something tightens. Not pain, not yet. Just a quiet reminder of the line she is never allowed to cross. Across the room, she notices the way people look at them. Admiration, envy, curiosity. No one sees the distance between them. No one hears the silence. When the photographer asks them to stand closer, her husband smiles politely and takes a small step forward, leaving space between them that feels wider than 6 feet. Evelyn follows, keeping pace, always careful, always obedient to the rules. She tells herself it does not matter. This is temporary. That is what she promised herself the night she signed the contract. That this life, this role, this carefully controlled existence would end one day. All she has to do is endure. But tonight feels different. Tonight, the air feels heavier, the room feels louder, and somewhere, deep inside Evelyn, a quiet thought begins to form. One she has never allowed herself to think before. What if walking away is not something she has to wait for? What if it is something she is already preparing to do? As her husband turns away to greet another investor, Evelyn lifts her eyes and looks toward the exit of the ballroom. The doors stand open, just slightly, letting in a breath of cooler air from outside. For the first time since becoming his wife, she wonders what it would feel like to walk through them, and she does not notice that her husband, for just a brief second, watches her instead of the crowd. The gala ends just after 10, but the night does not feel finished. Evelyn sits in the back seat of the black sedan as the city lights slide past the window. Neon signs blur into streaks of color, bright and distant, like a world she is allowed to see but never touch. Her hands rest neatly in her lap, fingers still, posture perfect. Anyone looking at her would think she is calm. She is not. Across from her, her husband scrolls through emails on his phone, already back in his world of numbers and decisions. The silence between them is not awkward. It is practiced, polished by months of repetition. This is how it always is. The car stops at a red light. For a moment, the city feels close, real. Evelyn watches a couple cross the street, laughing, their shoulders brushing without thought. Something in her chest tightens, just slightly. She looks away. When they arrive at the estate, the gates slide open without a sound. The house is massive, quiet, and perfectly lit. Every detail controlled down to the last inch. It has never felt like a home to her. It feels like a place she is allowed to occupy. Inside, her heels echo against the marble floor as she follows him in. A housekeeper takes her coat. Another offers water. Everything moves smoothly, efficiently. No one asks how she feels. Her husband loosens his tie as he walks, already heading toward his study. "You handled tonight well," he says, his back to her. The board was satisfied. Evelyn nods. That is what matters. He pauses for half a second, then continues walking. "You may take tomorrow morning off," he adds. "There is no need for you at the office." Not because she is tired, not because she deserves rest, only because she is not needed. "Yes," she replies. She turns toward the staircase, her steps slow and measured. Halfway up, she stops, not because she expects him to call her back, but because something inside her feels too heavy to carry in silence. "When this ends," she says quietly, not turning around, "will you be relieved?" The question hangs in the air. For a moment, she wonders if she imagined asking it. Then he answers, his voice calm, controlled, exactly the same as always. "This arrangement exists for a purpose," he says. "Emotions only complicate things. You knew that when you agreed." She closes her eyes for a brief second. "Yes," she says, "I did." In her bedroom, Evelyn closes the door behind her and leans against it. The silence here feels different, thicker, more honest. She exhales slowly, the kind of breath you take when no one is watching. Her phone vibrates on the nightstand, a message. She hesitates before picking it up, then unlocks the screen. It is from Daniel. "I saw you tonight," the message reads. "You looked distant. Are you okay?" Daniel, a name from before contracts and rules, before she learned how to disappear in plain sight. He is someone who remembers her laugh, not her last name. Someone who talks to her, not at her. She types, then deletes, types again. "I am fine," she finally writes, "just tired." The reply comes almost immediately. "You do not have to pretend with me." Her throat tightens. She sets the phone down without responding and walks to the window. The city stretches out below, endless and alive. Somewhere out there is a version of herself who does not need permission to exist. Down the hall, her husband stands alone in his study, staring at nothing. He tells himself the same thing he always does, that this is necessary, that distance is safety, that control keeps everything from falling apart. And yet, for the first time, the image that refuses to leave his mind is not the boardroom, or the market, or the numbers on his screen. It is Evelyn's hand, stopping just short of touching him, and the quiet way she said, "When this ends." Neither of them knows it yet, but the rules that once felt unbreakable have already begun to crack. Morning arrives quietly at the estate. Sunlight filters through tall windows, pale and restrained, never quite warm enough to feel welcoming. Evelyn wakes before the alarm, as she often does. Habit has trained her body to rise early, even on days when she has nowhere she is required to be. Today is one of those days. She sits on the edge of the bed for a moment, listening to the silence. No voices, no footsteps, no sense of urgency. She should feel relieved. Instead, the quiet presses against her chest. In the bathroom, she washes her face and looks at her reflection. The woman staring back at her is composed, elegant, and carefully put together. She looks like someone who belongs here. She does not feel like her. Downstairs, the house staff moves softly, as if trying not to disturb something fragile. Breakfast is laid out in the dining room, immaculate and untouched. Evelyn pours herself coffee and sits alone at the long table, her chair positioned precisely where it always is. Across from her, the seat that belongs to her husband remains empty. He has already left. On the polished surface of the table, a thin leather folder rests beside her place setting. She recognizes it immediately. The contract, or rather a copy of it. The one that defines her marriage in clean, precise language. She opens it slowly. No emotional involvement, no public affection, no interference in business or reputation. A fixed duration, a clear exit. She has read these words many times before. Today, they feel different, heavier, final in a way they never quite did before. Evelyn closes the folder and pushes it away. Later that afternoon, she leaves the estate alone. No driver, no assistant, just her and the quiet hum of the city as she walks down the sidewalk, blending in with people who do not know her story. She meets Daniel at a small cafe, tucked between a bookstore and a flower shop. It is the kind of place her husband would never step into. Too informal, too ordinary. Daniel stands when he sees her, concern written openly across his face. "I was not sure you would come," he says. I was not sure either, she replies. They sit across from each other, steam rising from their cups. The space between them feels different from the silence she knows at home. This silence waits. It listens. You looked unhappy last night, Daniel says gently. Evelyn hesitates, then smiles in a way that does not quite reach her eyes. I am married, she says instead. I know, he answers. That does not mean you are not allowed to feel. The words land harder than she expects. For a moment, she lets herself speak honestly. Not about contracts or rules, but about loneliness. About living in a place where everything is provided except comfort. About being seen only when she is useful. Daniel does not interrupt. He does not judge. He simply listens. Meanwhile, across town, her husband sits in a glass-walled conference room, surrounded by executives and advisors. Numbers scroll across screens. Voices overlap with urgency and confidence. And yet, his attention drifts. He checks his watch more than once. When his assistant slides a document toward him, he signs it without reading, then pauses, unsettled by his own distraction. He tells himself it is nothing, that he has always been focused, that this is just another day. But when he looks at the empty chair beside him, an unexpected image surfaces. Evelyn, sitting alone at the breakfast table. He pushes the thought away. That evening, Evelyn returns to the estate later than usual. Her footsteps echo through the hall as she walks inside, calmer than she has felt in weeks. Her husband is waiting in the living room. You were not here when I returned, he says. I took the day you offered, she replies evenly. There is a pause. I was not informed of your plans, he adds. I did not think I needed permission, she says. The words hang between them, sharper than she intended. For the first time since their marriage began, he looks at her not as an arrangement, but as a question. Something has shifted. Neither of them can name it yet, but they both feel it. The rules are still in place, but they no longer feel as solid as they once did. The next few days settle into a strange rhythm. Evelyn continues living in the estate, but something inside her has shifted. She still follows the rules. She still moves through the house with quiet precision, but she no longer shrinks the way she used to. In the mornings, she leaves earlier. Sometimes she walks. Sometimes she takes a rideshare instead of waiting for the driver. She spends time in places that do not require her last name. A public library, a small art supply store, the cafe where Daniel works nearby, though she never goes inside when he is there. Not yet. At home, the distance between her and her husband remains, but it feels different now, not controlled, unsettled. He notices the changes, even if he does not comment on them. She no longer waits for him to finish speaking before responding. She no longer asks permission to leave the house. She no longer eats dinner at the exact time he expects. At first, he tells himself it is nothing, that she is simply becoming more comfortable in the role, that confidence is a benefit of stability, but comfort does not look like this. One evening, she returns home wearing a soft sweater instead of one of the tailored dresses he is used to seeing. Her hair is pulled back loosely, not styled for anyone's approval. You did not dress for dinner, he says, glancing up from his tablet. I was not planning to join you, she replies calmly. He looks at her then, really looks at her. You have obligations, he says. So do you, she answers, and you miss them all the time. The words surprise both of them. Silence fills the room, thick and unfamiliar. Later that night, he stands alone in the hallway outside her bedroom. He tells himself he is simply passing by, that he needs nothing from her. But his steps slow. Inside, Evelyn sits at her desk, flipping through a sketchbook she has not opened in years. The pages are filled with half-finished drawings, traces of a life she set aside when survival became more important than dreams. She picks up a pencil. Her phone buzzes. A message from Daniel. I hope today was lighter for you, it reads. You sounded different the other day. Stronger. She stares at the screen for a long moment, then types back. I am trying to remember who I was before I learned how to disappear. She sets the phone down and begins to draw. Across the hall, her husband hears the faint sound of movement. A chair shifting. Peter rustling. A life continuing without him. It unsettles him more than he expects. At work, the distraction worsens. During a meeting, a senior partner asks him a question he has already answered. He blinks, irritated, then realizes he has been staring out the window instead of the screen. That has never happened before. His assistant clears her throat gently. Sir, should I reschedule the afternoon call? No, he says sharply, then softer. Proceed. But when the meeting ends, he does not return to his office right away. Instead, he stands by the glass wall, watching people move below, each of them heading somewhere with intention. For the first time, he wonders where Evelyn goes when she leaves the house alone. That weekend, they attend another public event together, a smaller gathering, less press, more familiarity. They walk in side by side, close enough to appear united, far enough to maintain the rule. As they stand talking with guests, a man approaches Evelyn and greets her warmly. "Evelyn," Daniel says, smiling. Her husband stiffens. Daniel does not reach for her. He does not cross any lines. He simply looks at her as if she is someone worth seeing. The difference is unmistakable. Evelyn introduces them politely. Her voice is steady, her posture relaxed. Her husband listens, his expression unreadable, but something tightens in his chest. When Daniel walks away, he turns to Evelyn. "You did not mention him," he says. "You did not ask," she replies. The music swells around them. Laughter rises. Life continues. But inside him, something unfamiliar takes shape. Not anger, not control, something dangerously close to fear. For the first time since he drew the line, he realizes the rules may not be enough to keep her exactly where he assumed she would always remain. The tension does not explode right away. It lingers. After the event, the drive home is quieter than usual. Not the practiced silence they both know, but something heavier, unfinished. The city lights pass by, reflected faintly in the glass, but neither of them looks out the window. Evelyn sits upright, composed, her hands folded neatly in her lap. Her face is calm, but her thoughts are not. Daniel's smile, his easy concern, the way he spoke her name without hesitation, all echo in her mind. Across from her, her husband says nothing. His phone remains untouched in his hand. When the car pulls into the estate, he is the first to step out. He does not offer his arm. He never does. Evelyn follows a step behind, the distance between them precise, deliberate. Inside the house, the doors close softly. The staff has already retired for the evening, leaving the space unusually quiet. "You seem comfortable with him," he says suddenly. Evelyn stops walking. She turns to face him, surprised by the sharpness in his voice. "He is a friend," she replies. "A friend you did not mention," he says. "You never asked about my friends," she answers evenly. His jaw tightens. "This arrangement requires transparency," he says. Evelyn lets out a slow breath. "This arrangement requires boundaries. You were very clear about that." He takes a step closer, then stops himself, as if remembering the rule he created. "I do not want complications," he says. Something in her expression changes then. Not anger, not sadness, something steadier. "I am not a complication," she says quietly. The words land between them, sharp and undeniable. He opens his mouth to respond, then closes it. For the first time, he does not have an immediate answer. Evelyn turns away and walks toward the staircase. That night, she does not sleep. She lies awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to the quiet hum of the house. She thinks about the contract, about the rules, about the life she agreed to live in exchange for security, and she thinks about how it feels to be seen. The next morning, she makes a decision. After breakfast, she goes to the study where the contract is kept. The room smells faintly of leather and polished wood. Order, control, everything in its place. She opens the drawer and takes out the folder. Her hands are steady. She reads the final clause again, the one that outlines the exit, the notice period, the conditions. It is all very clean, very simple. She closes the folder and carries it with her. When her husband returns home that evening, he finds her waiting in the living room, not standing behind him, not passing through, waiting. The folder rests on the table between them. "What is this?" he asks. "Clarity," she replies. She does not raise her voice. She does not accuse. She simply speaks. "I honored every rule," she continues. "I stayed where you placed me. I did not touch you. I did not ask for more. But I will not disappear to make this easier for you." He looks down at the folder, then back at her. "You are choosing to leave," he says, disbelief creeping into his tone. "I am choosing to live," she answers. For the first time, his control slips. "You cannot just walk away," he says. "I can," she replies, "and I will." She pushes the folder toward him. "I will give notice. I will do this properly, but I will not pretend anymore." She turns and walks toward the stairs. He watches her go, a strange, unfamiliar sensation tightening in his chest. Fear. Not of scandal, not of loss of control. Fear of absence. Upstairs, Evelyn begins packing a small bag. Not everything, just enough. Enough to prove to herself that this is real. Downstairs, her husband remains where he is, staring at the contract that once made everything feel safe. For the first time, the rules no longer protect him. They trap him. And as he hears the soft sound of a suitcase zipper closing above him, he realizes something far more dangerous than jealousy has taken hold. He is about to lose her. The next evening arrives with rain. It begins as a light drizzle, barely noticeable, then deepens into a steady downpour that washes the city in gray. Evelyn stands beneath the awning of a small restaurant across town, her coat pulled tight, her suitcase resting beside her. She did not tell anyone where she was going. She only told herself she would not turn back. Daniel spots her through the glass and steps outside immediately. "You came," he says, relief clear in his voice. "I said I would," she replies. He notices the suitcase but does not comment on it. Instead, he opens the door and gestures her inside. The warmth hits her all at once. The smell of food, the sound of voices, the comfort of a place where no one knows her as someone's wife. They sit near the window, rain streaking the glass beside them. Daniel talks about ordinary things. Work, a book he is reading, a trip he hopes to take someday. He does not ask about her marriage. He does not ask why she is here with a bag at her feet. For the first time in weeks, Evelyn breathes easily. Across the city, her husband stands alone in the living room of the estate. The house feels different now, larger, emptier. The silence no longer feels controlled. It feels abandoned. Her room upstairs is dark. The suitcase is gone. He checks his phone once, then again. No messages. Something tightens in his chest. He tells himself she is simply staying elsewhere for the night, that she will return, that this is part of the notice period she mentioned. But the rain keeps falling, and the unease does not pass. He reaches for his coat. Back at the restaurant, Evelyn laughs softly at something Daniel says. It surprises her. The sound feels unfamiliar, like a muscle she has not used in years. "Are you okay?" Daniel asks suddenly. She considers lying, then decides she is tired of pretending. "I am leaving," she says. "I have not told anyone yet, not properly." Daniel nods slowly. "That takes courage." "I am terrified," she admits. "That usually means you are doing the right thing." Outside, headlights cut through the rain as a black car pulls to the curb. Evelyn does not notice it at first, but Daniel does. His expression shifts. "Evelyn," he says carefully. She turns. Her husband steps out of the car, rain soaking into his coat, his hair damp, his composure visibly strained. This is not how she has ever seen him. No boardroom, no controlled setting, no distance, just him. He sees her sitting there, sees the suitcase, sees Daniel beside her. Something inside him snaps. He strides forward, ignoring the rain, ignoring the looks from people around them. He pushes open the door, the bell above it ringing sharply. The room goes quiet. "Come with me," he says, his voice tight. Evelyn stands slowly. "We are not doing this here," she says. "You are my wife," he replies. "You cannot just disappear." Daniel rises from his seat, stepping back to give her space. "She said she is leaving," Daniel says calmly. "You should respect that." Her husband turns on him, fury flashing across his face. "This does not concern you." "It concerns her," Daniel answers, "and she gets to choose." Evelyn feels the weight of the moment pressing down on her, eyes on her, silence waiting. "I chose," she says, her voice steady. "I told you that." Her husband looks at her as if seeing her clearly for the first time. "You are making a mistake," he says. "No," she replies. "I am finally making a decision." She reaches for her suitcase. In that moment, he breaks the rule. He grabs her wrist. The contact is electric, public, uncontrolled. The room seems to hold its breath. Realizing what he has done, he loosens his grip, but does not let go completely. "Do not leave," he says, his voice lower now, raw. "Not like this." Evelyn looks down at his hand on her arm, then back at his face. "This is what it took for you to touch me?" she asks quietly. The question cuts deeper than anger ever could. Rain pounds against the windows as the truth settles between them. The line he drew has been crossed, and there is no pretending anymore. The restaurant never fully recovers its rhythm that night. Conversations resume slowly, carefully, as if everyone senses they have just witnessed something private. Evelyn steps back, creating space between herself and her husband. His hand falls to his side, heavy, useless. I am not going anywhere with you, she says, her voice calm but unyielding. Not tonight. Not like this. Rain continues to hammer against the windows, a steady reminder that nothing about this moment is controlled. Her husband looks around, finally aware of where he is, of the eyes, of the silence he created. This is not a boardroom where authority bends people into agreement. This is not his world. This is hers. We need to talk, he says, lowering his voice. We have talked, Evelyn replies. You spoke, I listened, for a long time. Daniel remains standing nearby, not intervening, not intruding, just present. That alone feels like a challenge. Her husband turns away first. I will be outside, he says to Evelyn. Not a command, a request. She hesitates, then nods. Outside, the rain soaks them both instantly. Streetlights blur into soft halos through the downpour. Cars pass, indifferent to the unraveling happening on the sidewalk. He runs a hand through his wet hair, frustration etched across his face. I did not come to fight, he says. I came because the house felt empty. That is how it feels to live there, Evelyn answers. Every day. He flinches as if struck. I gave you everything, he says. Security, stability, a future. You gave me a position, she corrects him, not a place. He shakes his head. That is not fair. It is honest, she replies. For a moment he says nothing. The rain fills the silence for him. I do not know how to do this, he admits finally. I do not know how to be what you want. I never asked you to be anything, Evelyn says. I asked you to let me exist. Something in him breaks at that. He exhales sharply, shoulders sagging as if the weight he has carried for years finally presses down all at once. I thought distance was protection, he says. I thought if I kept everything separate, nothing could go wrong. And did it work? She asks. He looks at her, really looks at her. The woman standing in the rain, suitcase gone now, but resolve firmly in place. No, he says quietly. It did not. Inside the restaurant, Daniel watches through the window but does not approach. This is not his conversation to claim. I am scared, her husband continues. Not of losing control, of losing you. Evelyn's expression softens just slightly. Not enough to forgive, not enough to return. I already left, she says. You just did not notice until it became inconvenient. The words settle between them, heavy and undeniable. I will not stop you, he says after a moment. If you want to go, if you need to go. She studies his face, searching for manipulation, for conditions. She finds none. I need time, she says. Real time, without rules. He nods slowly. You will have it. They stand there, rain soaking through expensive fabric and simple coats alike. Equals for once, stripped of titles and contracts. I am not coming home tonight, Evelyn adds. I know, he replies. When she turns back toward the restaurant, he does not follow. He watches her walk away, step by step, until the door closes behind her and the light inside swallows her silhouette. Alone on the sidewalk, he realizes something that terrifies him more than any loss he has ever calculated. For the first time in his life, he cannot buy his way out of what he has broken, and for the first time, he understands that love is not something you control, it is something you risk losing. The city wakes slowly the next morning, washed clean by the rain. Evelyn sits at the small kitchen table in Daniel's apartment, a mug of coffee warming her hands. The space is modest, quiet, real. Sunlight filters through the window without asking permission. For the first time in a long while, she feels present in her own life. Daniel stands a few steps away, careful not to crowd her. You can stay as long as you need, he says. No pressure. Thank you, she replies, for not asking questions I am not ready to answer. He smiles gently. You deserve space. Across town, her husband stands in his office before sunrise. He has not slept. The city below looks different this morning. Not as a battlefield to conquer, but as something vast and uncertain. On his desk lies the contract. He opens it, not to skim, but to read. Every clause, every rule he wrote to protect himself. With each line, the truth becomes clearer. He did not design a marriage, he designed a distance. He reaches for his phone, then stops himself. No calls. No commands. No attempts to pull her back before she has a choice. Instead, he begins canceling meetings, one by one. investors, advisors, a charity gala scheduled weeks in advance. His assistant hesitates. "Is everything all right, sir?" "No," he answers honestly, "but it will be." By afternoon, the estate is quiet. Too quiet. He walks through the rooms where Evelyn once moved carefully, always mindful of rules she never created. He notices things he never did before. A book she left unfinished, a scarf draped over a chair, a faint trace of lavender that lingers long after she is gone. In the living room, he stops. The contract lies open on the table. He takes a pen. Then, deliberately, he tears the document in half. And then again. The sound echoes through the empty house. That evening, Evelyn receives a message. Not a demand, not an apology disguised as control, just an address. And one line. "I am not asking you to come back. I am asking you to hear me." She reads it twice. Daniel watches her expression change. "You do not have to go," he says immediately. "I know," she replies. "That is why I am going." The address leads her to a small rooftop garden overlooking the city. No press, no staff, no spectacle. Just him. He stands by the railing, hands empty, no coat, no armor. When he turns and sees her, something in his face softens. Not relief, acceptance. "Thank you for coming," he says. She does not respond right away. "I ended the contract," he continues. "Not to trap you, to free you." He gestures to the torn papers resting on a small table nearby. "I thought if I controlled everything, nothing could hurt me," he says. "I was wrong. I hurt you instead." Evelyn listens, her arms crossed, protecting herself. "I am not here to promise anything," he adds. "I am here to tell you the truth." He takes a breath. "I love you, not as a wife on paper, not as a role, as a woman who walked away because I failed to see her." The words are not polished, they are not rehearsed, they are real. Evelyn feels the weight of the choice settle into her chest. "You do not get to decide what happens next," she says quietly. "I know," he replies. "That is why I am letting you decide." The city hums below them, indifferent and alive. For the first time, there are no rules, only honesty, and the space for her to choose. The city glows softly beneath the rooftop garden, lights stretching into the distance like a promise that does not demand anything in return. Evelyn stands quietly, the cool night air brushing against her skin. She looks at the man in front of her, not as a billionaire, not as a husband defined by a contract, but as someone stripped of certainty. She does not answer right away. Time passes. Seconds feel longer than they should. "I need you to understand something first," she says finally. "Walking away was not a tactic. It was not meant to scare you. It was the only way I could hear myself again." He nods. "I know. I am not coming back to rules," she continues. "Not spoken ones, not unspoken ones. I will not shrink to make things easier. You will not have to," he replies. "Not ever again." She studies his face, searching for hesitation, for conditions, for the quiet need to control that once defined everything between them. She finds none. "What happens if I choose myself?" she asks. "And you cannot handle that." A small, honest smile appears on his face. "Then I will learn, or I will lose you, and that will be my consequence." The words are simple. They carry no guarantees. That is what makes them real. Evelyn steps closer, just one pace. The distance between them narrows, not by force, but by choice. "You do not get me back as your wife," she says. "Not yet." He nods again. "I know." "You get me," she continues. "Only if we start over. No contracts, no performances, no fear dressed up as control." His voice is steady when he answers. "I want that." She exhales slowly, as if releasing something she has carried for years. "Then I will stay," she says. "Not because I have to, because I choose to." For a moment, neither of them moves. Then, in a quiet, deliberate act, he reaches out his hand. He does not grab. He does not pull. He waits. Evelyn looks down at his open palm. Once, touching him in public was forbidden. Once, distance was law. She places her hand in his. The city does not stop. No one gasps. No cameras flash. But for them, everything changes. Weeks later, they attend another public event together. A charity evening. Bright lights, familiar faces. This time, when they walk in, there is no space between them. When someone comments on it, he does not correct them. When a photographer asks them to stand closer, he does not step away. And when Evelyn's fingers curl around his arm, he does not flinch. He smiles. Later that night, as they leave, she pauses at the entrance and looks back at the room she once felt trapped inside. "Do you regret it?" she asks, losing control. He looks at her, his hands still warm in hers. "No," he says. "I regret thinking control was ever love." They step into the night together, not as a perfect couple, not as a fairy tale, but as two people who chose honesty over fear. Some rules were never meant to be followed. They were meant to be broken, and sometimes, walking away is the only way to teach someone how to hold on.